My 7-year-old son told me to run away from my sister's wedding. A Chicago suburb bathed in an autumn twilight. Rachel Foster picked up the mail from her doorstep as she returned home from the hospital. Among the letters, an invitation printed on expensive paper caught her eye. It was from her older sister, Emma, the younger of the two. Rachel was often compared to her sister. This had been the case since she was a child. Serious and responsible, raised to live up to her parents' expectations. In contrast, Emma, 5 years her junior, was smart, driven, and full of self-confidence. Their parents often told Rachel, "You should learn from Emma." "I'm home," Rachel called, and 7-year-old Henry came running down the hall. "Mommy, I drew a dinosaur at school today. The teacher said my drawing was the best." Rachel smiled as she stroked her son's head. "Great, can I see?" From the kitchen, she could see 10-year-old Jolie doing her homework, and her husband, Jason, just home from work, loosening his tie while making coffee. A perfect family portrait appeared before her. Rachel was proud of the house she had built over the course of 15 years of marriage. "Any interesting letters?" Jason asked. Rachel took the invitation. It was from Emma. Maybe. She opened the envelope and was momentarily speechless. She was engaged to Richard Grant. "A developer?" Jason asked, looking a little surprised. "He was a big shot in the industry, right?" Rachel nodded. Richard Grant was a developer, successful real estate agent, well known in the local business world. She continued reading the invitations. The wedding was in 3 months. It seemed like the whole family was invited. That night, after the kids were in bed, Rachel looked at the invitations in their bedroom. Emma always seemed to be one step ahead. Graduated at the top of her law class, working at a prestigious law firm, and now married to a successful businessman. Jason stepped out of the shower and noticed her expression. "What are you thinking?" "It's just Emma. Everything's always been good for her." "Rachel." Jason sat next to her. "You have a great life, a good job, lovely children, and me." He won her over. Rachel smiled. "I know, but what?" "Nothing," she said. "I'm just tired." The next morning, Rachel called Emma. "Congratulations on your engagement." "Thank you." Emma's voice was filled with excitement. "I can't believe it. He's perfect." "You'll help Bao. Getting ready for the wedding, right? We're sisters after all." Rachel smiled. "Okay, just let me know what you need." "Great. Lunch tomorrow. I'd love to tell you all the details." Emma checked her schedule. "Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it." After hanging up, Emma felt mixed emotions. She was genuinely happy for her sister, but at the same time she was filled with a strange feeling. She reflected on her own marriage. 15 years ago, she and Jason had married for love. The first few years had been passionate, but after the kids were born, their lives became normal. Nothing particularly wrong, but the excitement had died down. At lunch the next day, Emma was radiant. She shared every detail from how she met Richard to their engagement, and Rachel listened intently. "Rachel, I've always wanted to be like you," Emma said suddenly. "Always making Mom and Dad proud." Rachel was surprised. "Me? But you're much more successful." A mom shook her head about her career, maybe, "but you have a happy family." "That's what I've always wanted." Those words made Rachel think. The sister she used to be jealous of was actually jealous of her. Ironically, she had recently begun to feel that something was wrong with the family she thought was perfect. A few weeks passed, and Rachel was helping with the wedding preparations in between work and family responsibilities. One night before going to bed, Henry said to his mother, "Mommy, I don't like Uncle Richard." "Why not?" Rachel asked, kissing the boy's forehead. "Because he always hid his phone when he saw me, like he was doing something bad." Rachel chuckled. "I was sure that wasn't the case. Uncle Richard was a busy businessman who handled important information. It was just your imagination." Henry seemed unconvinced, but said nothing more. Rachel told herself not to worry too much about a child's intuition. It was probably just stress from wedding preparations. When she got home, Jason was talking on his cell phone in the living room. When she entered, he quickly hung up. "Who are you talking to?" Rachel asked. "Oh, just a work call," Jason answered, looking somewhat uncomfortable. "Sorry I'm late. The project is behind schedule." Rachel noticed that her husband was coming home later than usual these days. Sometimes he would go out on weekends for urgent work meetings. She told herself that it was just the stress of Emma's wedding that was making her nervous. The family was happy. At least that's what she wanted to believe. The day before the wedding, the hotel lobby was bustling with preparations for the rehearsal dinner. Rachel had just finished her last meeting with the hotel's staff. The kids were supposed to be playing in the hotel pool. As she crossed the lobby, something caught her eye through the large windows that faced the parking lot. Henry was in the parking lot, pacing around Richard's luxury car. He was looking into the car as if he were searching for something. Rachel hurried outside. "Henry, what are you doing?" She approached her son. "You shouldn't look into other people's cars without permission." Henry turned around with a startled look. "Mom, I was just checking something." "Checking what?" Henry kicked his feet off the ground. "Nothing," he muttered. Rachel was confused but didn't ask anymore. It was time to get out of the pool and take a shower. "We had a rehearsal dinner tonight." That night, the rehearsal dinner went smoothly, with relatives from both families enjoying each other's company. However, during dinner, Rachel noticed Jason checking his phone several times and once leaving the table to make a call. When he returned, she asked, "Is everything okay?" "Oh, just a little problem at work," Jason replied softly. "I need to take care of this tonight." "Sorry, Rachel, but the wedding is tomorrow." "I know, but it's an emergency. I'll be back in a few hours." Rachel was disappointed but didn't argue. Jason is an executive at a construction company in a responsible position. She was sympathetic as usual. "Okay, I'll take the kids back to their rooms first." Back in the hotel room, Henry was quieter than usual. Jolie was playing a game on her tablet, but Henry sat on the bed, his chin resting on his small knees, deep in thought. "What's the matter, Henry?" Rachel sat next to her son. "When will Dad be home?" "Right after Dad gets off work. Tomorrow is an important day, so go to bed early." Henry was silent for a while but suddenly asked, "Is Uncle Richard a good person?" Rachel was surprised. "Of course. Why do you ask?" "Because." Henry hesitated. "It's okay." Rachel kissed her son's forehead. "Don't think too much. Come on, let's brush our teeth and get ready for bed." After the kids fell asleep, Jason still hadn't come home. Rachel called his cell phone several times, but only received voice messages. Around midnight, the door finally opened and Jason walked in. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said quietly. "It's more complicated than I thought." Rachel looked at her husband. He looked tired, but also a little nervous. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, we've got it figured out," Jason said, loosening his tie. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "You should go to sleep." "I'm waiting for you," Rachel said. But anxiety was spreading through her. On the morning of the wedding, the hotel was bustling. Rachel, dressed in her bridesmaid's dress, was helping Emma get ready in her room. Her sister, dressed in a pure white wedding dress, looked so happy she could burst into tears at any moment. "I can't believe this day has come," Emma said, looking out the window. "Rachel, thank you so much. This day wouldn't have come without you." Rachel hugged her sister tightly. "If you're happy, that's enough." The ceremony was perfect. Smiles were everywhere, surrounded by a festive atmosphere. However, throughout the ceremony, Rachel noticed her husband exchanging glances with her sister several times. At one point, Jason even winked at Emma. Was it just a friendly gesture? Rachel thought her imagination was running wild, but when she glanced back, she saw Henry taking out his smartphone during the ceremony and filming something. He was normally not very interested in technology. She gestured with her eyes for him to put his phone away, but Henry just looked at her for a moment, then continued. As the reception began and the toasts and speeches were going on, Rachel saw Emma heading to the bathroom. Thinking that she might need help like her sister, she stood up as well. When she entered the hallway, she was greeted by a shocking sight. When Emma emerged from the bathroom, Jason was waiting for her. After a brief conversation, Jason put his hand on Emma's arm and whispered something. The expressions on their faces showed that this was more than just a conversation between her husband's family. Rachel hid behind the wall and watched the scene. Her heart pounded. Emma and Jason went their separate ways, and Rachel returned to the dance floor, her legs shaking. Something was wrong. But this was her sister's special day. She pretended not to notice and forced a smile. After dinner, when the dancing began, Caroline returned to the table and noticed Henry was unusually restless, constantly checking his phone. "What's wrong?" she asked. Henry looked up at his mother and replied in a small voice, "I'll tell you later." His eyes held a heavy determination that didn't fit a 7-year-old. Although Rachel felt nervous, she still said, "Okay," and patted her son's head. On the wedding dance floor, the first dance of the bride and groom had just ended. Emma was radiant in her white dress, and Richard looked at her with loving eyes. The MC took the microphone and called out to the bride's sister and her partner. Next, we had the bride's sister, Rachel Foster, and her husband, Jason. Rachel stood up and walked onto the dance floor with Jason. Her husband put one hand on her waist and held her hand with the other. The music started playing and they began to dance slowly. "You look beautiful," Jason said softly. "That dress suits you." Rachel tried to smile, but inside she felt uneasy. "Thank you." Jason pulled her closer. "What's wrong? What's bothering you?" "No, nothing," she lied. From the corner of her eye she could see Emma talking to another guest. She was beaming. Seeing her sister so genuinely happy, Rachel felt guilty. Her suspicions might just be paranoia. Maybe there was nothing between Jason and Emma. Maybe she was overthinking things. When the dance ended, Rachel returned to the table. There she found Henry waiting for her. His small face was tense with worry, and he was clutching her smartphone with both hands. "Mom, we need to go now," Henry whispered, taking her hand. The guests were chatting happily, and the music was playing loudly. Rachel smiled, trying not to lose her composure in front of her son despite her confusion. "Why?" Henry quietly took out his smartphone. "Look." When Rachel looked at the screen, she saw a photo of Jason and Emma talking intimately in the hotel lobby, holding hands. The date was from the day before the wedding. At that moment, Rachel froze, blood draining from her face. As she swiped through the screen, more photos of the two appeared in succession. The two of them hugging in the hotel hallway, talking in the car. "I borrowed Jolie's tablet and there were messages from Dad," Henry explained in a low voice. "I accidentally opened it, and there were a lot of pictures of Dad and Aunt Emma." Rachel gasped. "Henry, I'm sorry, Mom." Tears welled up in Henry's eyes, but I knew Dad had done something bad. Poor Uncle Richard. Rachel came to her senses and hugged her son tightly. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Thank you, Mom, for telling me." Henry continued. "Yesterday, when we got to the hotel, I took a picture with Jolie's tablet because Dad was talking to Auntie in the lobby. Dad saw me and tried to hide something." Rachel held the smartphone with trembling hands and looked at the pictures that appeared one after another. The last picture showed Rachel handing some documents to Jason, and then the messages. Rachel scrolled through and read their conversation. It was obvious that their relationship had lasted for years. Even more shocking, Richard didn't seem to know about their relationship. "Mom, Dad, and Auntie are doing something bad. Poor Uncle Richard. Let's go home, Mom," Henry begged. Rachel's mind was in chaos. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and trust as a family. Everything was about to collapse. And her sister, the person she trusted the most. They had been competing since childhood, but she never imagined betrayal. Around them, the reception continued. Laughter, congratulations, music. But to Rachel's ears it sounded like distant noise. She was in a drunken stupor, unable to bear the contrast between the celebratory mood around her and her own collapsing world. Eden took her hand again. "Mom, are you okay?" Caroline regained her composure and looked into her son's eyes. She was moved by the courage of her son, who in his small body carried adult secrets and tried to do the right thing. It was time to make a decision. "Henry, thank you for showing me this. You are a brave and honest child." She hugged her son. "But we can't leave just yet. First, Mom needs to tell Richard the truth." "Uncle Richard." Henry's eyes widened. "Yes, he has a right to know the truth. This is an adult matter, but thanks to you, I can do the right thing." Rachel took a deep breath and was determined to find the groom Richard with photographic evidence. Hiding the tears on her face, she stood up. Holding Henry's small hand, she said, "Let's go together." They pushed past crowd, began to search for Richard. Rachel and Henry found Richard in a corner of the banquet hall. He was talking to some business associates. Rachel took a deep breath and gathered her courage. "Richard, can I talk to you for a moment?" she said, trying to sound as calm as possible. "It's important." Richard seemed to sense something from her expression. "Of course." He apologized to the people present and walked towards Rachel. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Rachel put her hand on Henry's shoulder and said, "Let's go outside and talk." The three of them left the banquet hall and walked to the hotel garden. The night air was cold and music and laughter could be heard in the distance. In a quiet corner, Rachel faced Richard. "I have something to tell you." It hurt, but she continued, choosing her words carefully. Henry thought of something. She took out Henry's smartphone and handed it to Richard. "Look." Richard held the smartphone and looked at the photos on the screen. His expression slowly changed. First confusion, then understanding, and finally pain and anger. He scrolled through each photo. "How long has it been?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "I don't know," Rachel answered honestly. "Henry found it by accident. He was trying to do the right thing." Richard breathed a sigh of relief and returned the smartphone to Rachel. He seemed at a loss for words. "I don't know how long this has been going on, but I think you have the right to know the truth," Rachel said. Richard, despite his shock, has maintained a certain calmness. "Actually, I feel like something is wrong," he confessed. "Emma deletes messages frequently. Her work schedule is irregular, but I have no proof." He looked at Henry and gently stroked his head. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell us, Henry." Just then, a voice rang out from behind Rachel. What was she doing? Turning around, she saw Emma and Jason standing in the garden. Confusion was written all over Emma's face. Jason seemed frozen for a moment. He looked at the smartphone in Henry's hand. "What are you two talking about?" Emma asked again. She seemed to sense something was wrong from Richard's expression. Richard said softly but firmly, "The truth seems to have come out." He pointed at the smartphone. "I didn't expect to find out about you and him on our wedding day." Emma's face paled. What was he talking about? Jason stepped forward to try to explain. "Richard, this is a misunderstanding. We were talking about work." "Enough." Rachel interrupted. Her voice was trembling. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and trust as a family. The two of them had betrayed all of that. Emma reached for the smartphone, but Richard took it first and looked at the screen. It showed messages between the two of them. "Can we meet tonight? I told Richard to have a meeting first." Richard read it aloud. It turned out that this was the meeting he was talking about. Silence fell. Henry held Rachel's hand tightly. Suddenly, Emma burst into tears. "No, that's not it. What's going on?" Rachel asked. "Why my husband?" Emma suddenly became angry with Rachel. He was always better. Loving parents, good grades, perfect family. I was always in his shadow. Jason was the only one who really understood me. Rachel was speechless. Although she had always been jealous of her sister, would her sister be jealous of her? However, that was no reason to take her husband away. Richard quietly announced, "The wedding is cancelled. I will apologize to the guests for today." His voice was cold. "A house cannot be built on lies." Jason finally spoke. "Rachel, listen," he begged. "We just need enough," Rachel said calmly. "Our marriage is over. For the sake of the children, let's leave quietly tonight." Henry looked up at his father. Confusion and sadness were written all over his small face. Rachel took Henry's hand and said, "Let's go pick up Jolie and go home." Before they left, she turned to Emma. "A real family doesn't betray each other. They support each other. You betrayed me, but I can't hate you. Stay out of my life." She left the garden with Henry. Behind them, Richard was still saying something to Emma and Jason. But Rachel didn't turn around. The road ahead would be difficult, but she knew that building a new life based on the truth was much better than living a lie. 6 months later, in a newly built suburb of Chicago, in front of a brand new red brick house, Rachel was unloading her car. The divorce was finally finalized last month, and she has started a new life with her children. Rachel working part-time as a counselor using her psychology degree. Helping people with family relationship problems allows her to use her own experiences. The children are adjusting to school, and Henry in particular is recovering from the events of that day by talking regularly to the school psychologist. In the following days, he would ask, "Daddy, it's not my fault if I do bad things, is it?" But gradually, he began to understand. While she was making tea in the kitchen, the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, Richard was standing there. He was smiling, holding a small potted plant. "A housewarming gift," he said. "I thought something that could grow would be perfect for a fresh start." Rachel invited him in. Surprisingly, a friendship developed with Richard after the engagement was broken. They were both hurt for the first few weeks. But one day he asked her out for coffee and struck up a conversation. "Thanks for telling me the truth that day, Dad," he said. "It hurt, but it was so much better than building a life of lies." While drinking coffee in the living room, Richard said, "Henry is really a brave kid. He doesn't take pictures, but becomes suspicious from adult conversations and tries to find evidence. You are a great mother to raise a child with such deep understanding." Rachel smiled. It was an experience too early for him, but he is getting over it. Henry and Jolie are rebuilding their relationship with their father. Henry, in particular, struggled to understand his father's betrayal. Sometimes he had nightmares about the day he showed the pictures on the tablet. Rachel taught her children that everyone makes mistakes, but that's not all. Thanks to therapy, Henry gradually began to enjoy weekends with his father. "I'm starting to understand that Dad really loves me," he said one day. "But why can't Mom and Dad be together?" Rachel patiently answered such questions. One day, while scrolling through social media, she discovers that Jason has posted a photo with another woman. Rumor has it that Emma has moved out of town and moved to another office. Their relationship seems to have fallen apart quickly. Christmas Eve in December. Rachel is staring into the fireplace, reflecting on the past 6 months. It has been a rough ride, but she and her kids are slowly recovering. The doorbell rings. When she opens the door, Emma is standing there. She looks gaunt and tired, with regret in her eyes. "Do you have time to talk?" Emma asks quietly. "I broke up with Jason. He's not alone. Everything was wrong." Rachel hesitates for a moment before opening the door wider. "The kids will have fun," she says. "Today is a special day. Come in." As Emma walks in, Henry appears in the hallway. He looks surprised at first, but soon waves. "Merry Christmas, miss." The answer. The question of what is real family is complex. It's not just about blood ties, but also about trust, honesty, and sometimes forgiveness. Henry's courageous actions taught them the importance of relationships based on truth rather than lies. Rebuilding a family is not an easy road, but they have taken the first step on that journey.